Hi, everybody. My name's AndrewZebrunIII, and I'm here with Todd Cunningham, who has a great vision. He's been seeing crystal cities. So I thought I'd have Todd on talk about these crystal cities that he sees, and they sort of reminded me of something I saw in a movie once about emerald cities and Wizards of Oz and things like that. And I posted about that the other day. You can find it on my Telegram, my public Telegram. So let's hear what Todd has to say about Crystal Cities.
Hi, Andy. How are you? I'm glad to be here. And this is one of my first times being interviewed, so we'll see what happens. What do I have to say about Crystal Cities? You know, I've been into energy healing for a while, maybe 20 years. And so I've done a lot of meditating and going out in the woods and writing in my journal. I was a river guide, so I was out on rivers for 33 years. And it's just as I was developing my own consciousness and learning how to facilitate other people and all my experiences out in nature. After a while, I just started having visions of these cities over the mountains. And they're coming closer now. And they're pretty fantastic. And I've actually sat and meditated on and got answers of what's happening and what they're about. So it's really a big picture story. But before we get too far into that, I need to clarify something, because you were talking about the Wizard of Oz, and I read your article, and were you talking about the Wizard of Oz being more of kind of an Illuminati overlay or whatever, deep state overlay of the whole story?
Yeah.
You know, with of each character being part of the system, basically.
Right.
Or the part of taking us and programming us. Is that?
Yeah. And
because we put this all into the same stew, and I'm like, so wait a minute, my visions of the crystal cities and what you were talking about on the Wizard of Oz they're related in that one's trying to manipulate it and have control of it. And the message I have for that are, you know, the quick story is that, you know, it's the story of we're the ones that we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And we have lots of help, and I think the whole universe is alive. The universe is conscious, and the earth is conscious. And, you know, as a Native American showed me, the rocks are people and they're conscious. All the, you know, the crystals they have, or if you say it in the way Tesla would say, it's energy and frequency and vibration. But, you know, we can't locate our own consciousness in any physical location. So it must be a frequency sort of thing and an energy field thing. And it's something that's not dependent on the physical part.
Right.
So in the Wizard of Oz, they made this movie about these beautiful in color. And at the time, it was one of the first color movies. Is that correct? I think so. So they had beautiful visions, but then they put in all the, you know, the Tin Man and the, you know, the Scarecrow. Your what's the word for that? Your what do they call the part of you that's your birth certificate goes with the straw man?
Yeah, the straw man.
So they've been trying to control these visions, which that's a really good lead in if we go about it that way, which is because we have all the power. So there's somebody, if we don't let them trick us, you know, the way I've been saying it for 20 years, I go, if everybody in the world stands up tomorrow morning and says, no more of this, it's going to happen this way. And 7 billion people agree, then that would be how it is. It's really that simple. So the battle, the commodity is human perception. That's on one side. The other way to look at it is you have all the power. You have all your power as long as you know how to. And it's not a battle. Once you know how to invite yourself in more of your consciousness, your higher self. That's how I work with it with people. I think it would help this story to go over what I do one-on-one. So I started with myself and I was like, what if, there's part of me that lives on or doesn't need this body, or, what if it's not true that I'm this flesh and blood thing, and when I fall to the floor one day and it's over with, I stop breathing, then it's done. What if that's not true? What if? And at the same time, I've been sensing things my whole life. My filter that's been kind of broken open my whole life. People talk about the veil. So there's been one, and in one way, I think everybody, I don't think any of us are any different. We all have these senses and they try to talk us out of it. And they spend a lot of time talking us out of it throughout our whole life. And so, but one thing that was just kind of jammed open for me, no matter how hard they tried, the system tried to close it on me, I just felt stuff. And the way I say it now is that, I'm empathic. I wish I knew the word. I heard a word. I was listening to someone's show on the way drive back here today, and I forgot the word for it, but they talked about how all their senses kind of blur together. And this person was really dyslexic, like I am. And I think in one way, it saved me, right? I'd be off stuck in some professional job and I'd have all the stuff that I'd bought and that I'd owned. And then I'd be worried about how am I going to pay for it and finish, putting the kids through college. And that's where I'd be. And because I lost a grade point and a half in physics class on spelling, it kept me out of that system. Does that make any sense, really?
It does.
And at the same time, I see differently than a lot of people. I see in pictures and I don't see in words. People talk about translating a different language. I have to translate what I experience back into English to be able to talk to anybody in my first language. I've been trying to learn some Spanish and it's slow for me, but it's fun. So I feel it, but the way I say it in these words in English class, they tell you they don't go together, Todd, but I feel it so strongly that I see it. And so I'll get a picture in my mind from things that I feel, and especially if I put somebody on a table and put my hands on, then I'll see right through my fingers like fiber optics almost or something. I'll see their energy field, but through my hands. Now I don't necessarily have to be even anywhere near them. So the next things that happen is I always try to collect the evidence of something without trying to figure out what it means. And what I've found is it eventually starts telling its own story to me. So like in healing work, people say, well, how do I learn it? I want to learn to do this. I go, you got to, sit with as many people as you can and start reading your own. So that's what's in my book is exercises about how to start learning how your own system works and really differentiating, oh, those aren't even my feelings. It's the person next to me who's upset. I wasn't upset when I walked in here. And I had to learn all these things. So I put together a system for myself because I put myself here on the planet in a place where none of this was real, none of it was allowed. Nobody talked about it. You weren't allowed to talk about it. And you were crazy if you talked about anything. And if you heard anything in your head, then forget about it. You were, you're done. So
yeah,
I had to come up with my own way. And now that I can look out on the wider world, I see that other people have their ways, but I came up with my own way. I dabbled around in some things and learned from people, but I came up with my own way to manage my own self. And then I expanded it to help facilitating other people. And I used the same rules, which was, I didn't know what all these different energy fields are. And in some ways I could write a book maybe about 20 different energy systems, but in one way, it's really just how I see it. Because I talk to somebody else intuitive and interview them, and they see it completely differently. So my book of it's this field and that way, and it goes spins this way, and it's this color. I think we're looking at the same thing, me and this other person say, but we don't perceive it the same way at all.
Right.
And so there's two things I've learned. One is to just follow what I see, and people start changing. It's almost as if one more person's awareness, their willingness. I think the old word that comes to me, and I don't even know exactly where it comes from me, but it's almost from another lifetime that I had, is witnessing. And it's in conjunction with, where two or more gather, I'm there. If you're willing to just stand with somebody and light up what you see, and you've done your homework to be able to keep your own space and hold space for somebody and know the difference between what you're feeling and their feelings, then you can follow their patterns without even really manipulating them. And I find I just have to light them up and maybe help them guide them into, what's going on in this area in your body. And there'll be a whole story, and there's usually some fear and some pain and some anger. But if you're willing to go there and shed light on it, it will start changing and shifting, and then you're going to run more efficiently. Your body's going to work better. You're going to feel better. You're going to be more balanced. You're going to be more centered. I don't think it's really that complicated. So that's how I do the work one-on-one with people, and what I do with myself.
Mm-hmm.
So then that expanded to, every day I have to keep verifying things, meaning that I have to look at the same body of information over again and decide if it's true for me today. And what happens is a lot of it just like, oh yeah, that's good, that's true. And then, and you see something a little bit differently than you ever saw it before that way. And so with the meditating on where does consciousness come from, and taking it down to the trail of, so we haven't located it. Our science hasn't located it anywhere. It's not in your brain. I think that's the first story for all. Everybody grew up with the Western programming. Your consciousness is not in your brain, and therefore the answer is not in your brain. And why everybody's going crazy is because they've been trained to look between their ears for what's the answer. And if I have any story for you, I'm like, it's not there, and you can't do spiritual work in between your ears. Now, I'm not saying your brain's not very useful and it's not functional, and it's a receiver and a transceiver all at the same time. So you can receive huge amounts of information with your brain, and you can process scenarios with your brain. But the place where you're connected to all of the dimensions is here. So in looking at what's conscious and going, well, wait a minute. So if I'm conscious and I've made out of the universe, and the universe is a lot more than I am, then probably the universe is conscious too. I mean, it makes a lot more sense than what I grew up with in science class, where I'm conscious and all of this isn't. It's really kind of silly if you just step back and look at it for a second. And so when I'm sitting with the planet and a stone, and you know, the way I learned about crystals was you pick one up and then you pick the next one up, and the next one feels different than the other one. It's that simple. It's the same as when you put your hand over this chakra here and then this one here, and it feels different. And the only way to learn that is old school practice. You keep doing it, and just the way you learned how to walk and the way you learned to speak in the first place, you just kept doing it, and things started clicking together, and it taught you what it means. So when we do this thing we're programmed to, where the minute we start getting information, we start putting meaning on it. And that's one of the mistakes I see many of us making. The minute, so something starts coming in, and especially if it's challenging to us, then we immediately attach meaning to it. And that's where I see a lot of people get derailed. Well, this happened, and so this happened. And you're like, wait a minute, those two things don't even necessarily go together. One thing happened, and the other thing you added to it. It may be real, it may be your experience, it may not even be real. So let me slow down for a second. I'm trying to show you that it's parallel. Working with yourself and facilitating somebody else and sitting with the planet. So everyone I work with, I'm like, so do you think the Earth's alive? Do you think Gaia is real? And everyone goes, yeah. Usually if they're signed up to work with me in the first place, they're like, oh yeah, no, I really think that. I'm like, so do you have a relationship with the planet? And they're like, what? I'm like, do you talk to the Earth as if she could hear you?
I do.
I know you do. And a lot of people are, and it's really accelerating more and more. But 10 years ago, people looked at you like you had 6 heads.
Yeah.
Huh? What are you saying, Todd? I'm like, well, if the planet's alive and if she's been in her body 4.5 billion years or whatever it is straight, maybe she knows something. And so if you sit with that and you ask her to show, all you have to do is sit with the Earth, ask to connect, because we're in a free choice zone. So the asking also gives permission. Now everybody has permission. You've granted your permission and you've asked for permission, and it's a respect thing. That's how I do it. And say, will you guide me on one would be how to run my physical body, because this is Earth. So if I'm doing physical body stuff, I'm like, how about ask the part of the universe that made it, or where it comes from?
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, right?
Show me how to use this thing, help me out. And in that whole process of sitting on a rock out on the side of the mountain or whatever, on the lake or wherever I could get, because I think all these things are intact in nature. It's harder. If I'm sitting on a bench in the middle of Park Avenue, I can do it, but with a power cord as big around as the street underneath running 60 hertz, it takes a little more tuning for me to get through that amount of discordant energy. But 60 hertz is not life sustaining. It destroys living things. So it's a bad choice for our frequency of power that we run through our living spaces. Okay, sidebar. So I started seeing these cities over the mountains. You know, I'd go climb up on my favorite ledge and just sit there for a while and watching the sunset. And all of a sudden I'm looking up and it's like a blue-white crystalline sort of energy. And there's all kinds of beings there, and they have, you know, whatever living spaces. And I don't think they need vehicles really. And I go, oh, that's interesting. What's going on there? And of course I was like, can I go there? How do I get there, guys?
Yeah.
And through time, I've been downloading the story that they're coming here. And I'm sure someone else has a different name for this. If there's any proof that I've kind of done this on my own, this is it, because I have my own words. So I've heard of Shambhala, and I hear of, you know, I think this goes right along with the Christ consciousness story and the galactic logos that I hear from other people. People are talking about new frequencies coming to the planet, new grids coming to the planet, but those are all other people's words. And my own words is crystal blueprint overlay, cities, nature, everything that's being overlaid the planet. And the latest message I've gotten with it is that we are also very important in this whole process. Some of us, potentially all of us, eventually all of us, however that all works, have the most experience living. And so then I got to go back to the one-on-one thing. I've spent a lot of time working with my higher self to get my higher self in alignment with this physical body, because I think that's why I have a physical body, is because my higher self wants to come here to the planet. In fact, I think as we come in, we make agreements with the earth and whatever consciousness is with the earth and the elementals and all of it, our higher self, to come here and have a body. I think without that, you wouldn't have a body. So in other words, what I'm saying is, you know, everybody wants to travel around, and of course you want to hang out with the angels because it's really nice, because it's rough down here on earth. But as far as I can see it, your higher self wanted to come here and be in this body. And what I experience is the alignment. So literally someone's soul's usually, you know, they're floating around somewhere nearby their body. They haven't like brought their higher self down into their body. And one of the reasons is because you're going to feel more and experience more. Like we came here to feel hot and cold and fear and pain and anger, and, you know, to have the experience with it. And I think also to bring our frequencies. So this is where it connects back to the Crystal City story. All of us, everyone says, well, you know, what's my divine purpose here? I can tell you one of them. One of your divine purposes is to bring in your higher frequencies here into the planet. To help, you're helping, you know, some of us are from some other galaxy or some other universe even, and so we have a lot of frequency, but I think everyone has unique, either it's a refresher or whatever it is, a tune-up, or it's a brand new information that we're bringing here to the planet. So yeah, we're getting something, and we're getting this whole learning process, and we're getting to experience ascension process maybe again, but we're also bringing our frequencies here, and that goes in with aligning it, bringing it right into your body. Because this is Earth, this is still Earth. It's kind of like the ashes and the ashes to ashes story, but it's in real time, right? Earth in, Earth out, Earth in. I won't show you the out part on camera. You get the idea. Eat it in, it goes. You know, it's a constant higher self in all the way down to the core of the Earth. And then the Earth has their higher self. And so we connect right into the higher self of the Earth, which then, of course, goes back to source. So that's, you know, think of like a torus, right? It's circular. Source, great central sun, my higher self, into my body, Earth's higher self, back to source. And then it's coming the other way too, or multiple directions. So you're right, the torus is going this way and this way at the same time.
Yep.
Okay. So the higher consciousness that's coming to Earth, I've avoided this part of the story for a while. The best words I have for it are, you know, I agree with the linking Christ consciousness and the galactic logos, the consciousness of the galaxy, right? So the Earth has a consciousness, the sun has a consciousness, the whole galaxy, that is the Christ consciousness, and why it was such a big deal, why everybody showed up when the galactic consciousness came into a body on a planet. Everyone's like, oh, we want to see what's going on, what's happening here. So that the return of Christ, as we've turned into the where we're now getting in the direct beam of energy coming out of the galactic great central sun. I kind of mix those words together because I think there's an infinite consciousness, like great central sun of all of existence, and then there's the galactic central sun. I think we could get hung up on all these words, and everybody gets way too hung up on it a lot of times. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot of different names for the same things, phenomena.
Yeah.
So it's shining on us now. That galactic consciousness we're being bombarded with it. And I think that is what I'm seeing in these crystal cities, or energetic, multidimensional, liquid crystal blueprint of what this can be and what it will be. What they're telling me when last time I sat out in the woods with this is that, so we are now downloading even another layer of consciousness besides our higher self, or if you will, like our individual Christ consciousness. Like we have an individual spark of God consciousness. You follow that back, we're all one. And so then we're embodying the Christ consciousness, each of us individually in our way. And they're trying to put together more consciousness, and they need our skills in 3D to make a reality that's like super real and tangible, but infused with even higher consciousness. I don't know how all of this works. I don't have it all figured out. I don't know that I won't sit here and tell you that I understand everything, but so we are equally important in allowing that consciousness to come into us, then our consciousness, our awareness, our ability to operate. Because look around. The answer is to go into a really dense 3D energy and still remember that you're part of God is hard to do. And that my evidence is, turn on your TV. You'll see how hard it is to do. Look around, go down to the border if you want to see if,
No, good one, Todd.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
And we're good at it. Believe it or not, relative to the rest of the universe, we're good at it. Some of us are good at it. And it's not one over the other, but, there's catalysts to all these things. And whoever wakes up can put more, whatever. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. So the more of us that allow, so the model's sort of like this, right? So we had to get our egos to know their place. Ego's good. I mean, ego's the thing that keeps you from running off the cliff when you're running down the mountain, because you're tapping into all this really high speed energy, and you might forget that you can't fly right this moment. And, and your ego will go, whoa, you got to stop like this. You're going to wreck your body. So it has its place. And then when we let our higher self in and we start going, and that's the distance from your brain to your heart. And where you start, this I committed to a while ago, if everybody doesn't agree, meaning my heart and my head and my gut, then we see, the psychologist would have a lot of fun with this. We are going where my heart says, not that the heart's not paying attention to your gut. It's like, what's going on, gut? You don't like that. What's happening? All of this is about coherence, about balance, and about synchronization. And so now and then we're getting more, I don't know the right words for this. We're getting more consciousness besides our higher self that we're going to make one. And my idea is this: so you got three brains. You got your head, your heart, right? Everybody knows all the information about all the different nerve cells that we have in our heart. There's more synapses in our heart than our brain. We have a huge center in our gut around our large intestines too. So you got three brains, so use them. All your cells are making a lot of their own decisions. The elementals, the earth, the sun, we're like a symphony of consciousness that I call me.
Right.
That we're trying to make coherent. And now we're getting another galactic consciousness to, not that it hasn't always been there. Well, obviously there's examples of masters that did this 2,000, 5,000. It's always been doable. But we're just getting, cooked by it right now. Like, it's like you're going to either go along with the galactic consciousness now, or you're going to fry like a French fry, I think. There's no. And that's the blueprint, but it also needs our input to make that new earth real.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I told you I wouldn't have anything to say.
It's just like the election thing. We all got to get involved to turn it around, or it's not, right?
Okay, so that I was listening to this stuff driving. I drove 300 miles today, so I start plugging in. That's when I get a chance to listen to people's stuff the most. And there are certainly really great people trying to help out this whole process, but they're still just humans. And just like in this model, I'm trying to show everybody about this new Earth galactic blueprint. We have to plug into it. It's not, we're it. We're it.
Yeah.
We're the ones. So it's the same parallel story.
Yep. Exactly.
In fact, I would say don't get overly concerned with all that, because that's all machinations of the people that long ago figured out, if I can get your attention, because right, you can move. If I say, everybody come here to my grandpa's cabin and come and sit here, you can move your attention here. You can remote view it. That's the biggest commodity. The more of us that realize, oh, I have full control over that. And so it's not a battle. There's, right? It's delusion in a way where they've all taken it away from us and enslaved us. And in a way, yes, but in another way, bullshit. If we all wake up tomorrow morning and say, we're not slaves and now our world runs this way, guess what's going to happen?
Exactly.
That's what's going to happen.
Yep.
So we're the ones.
Yep.
Not them. No, you know, the purest one I see in that whole arena is, oh God, now I'm going to forget all their names because I just went like extra dimensional, so I lose all my English. General Flynn, and he'll look you right in the eye and tell you straight out, I'm not coming to save you. Trump's not coming to save you. No, nobody's, he's not kidding. I mean, look at how pure that guy is and selfless that guy is. He's like, he's trying to tell you something.
Right.
I'm not coming to save you. I'm barely surviving, trying to give everybody this information, which is wake the fuck up and do it.
Right.
And then so in the spiritual level, it's the same thing. We're not like, oh, we bow down to Michael, and no, he's like, stand up and get your own sword out and come with me, because you can.
Exactly.
That's the story. It's not, I'm here. Yeah, they'll help us out, but that, when we made that agreement to come here and live on the planet in a free choice experiment, because we're here on the planet in a body, we're the ones with the choice. They can't just, they could, but it ruins the whole thing. Well, they just come and fix it. It's because that's not the point. The point is, you fix it. And you fix it, and you fix it, and you fix it. Embody it, bring it in. But also know that to live, we were talking about it in the CC meetings about light and dark. And I always like to point out on purpose that there's some confusion about the darkness. Being this, evil and evil wishes it was dark energy. Dark energy, dark, universal dark energy is just raw, pure potential energy. What's scary about it is it can be turned into anything. You could take that and turn it into Jesus, or take that and turn it into some major mass murderer. But this is where we've done our homework and earned our whatever. a lot of us, we've volunteered to come in here and be like, I can do it. I can balance. I can live in a world where you're balancing the yin and the yang, because you don't get this hard of matter without it being almost as much dark as light, without getting lost. And so then now we're like trying to take that to, I don't even know what, I can't tell you. I think it's going to be more magnificent than any of us could possibly, just like whatever messed up stories are going to get flushed out of the corners that no one's paid attention to in the last 10,000 years. And all of us, I think, are going to go, oh, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah.
The same way it's going to be infinitely amazing. Like, I don't know, we're going to be able to fly and bilocate and run around, but maintain the balance. So we're trying to create that playground. So that's what I think I'm seeing when I'm seeing. And now what's really encouraging to me right now is that again, this is just how I visualize it and how I see it. And so some of it's a story that the universe is telling me to my understanding. So, when it gets translated into, he said this, and he mean, you're like, well, yes and no. So the way it's being communicated to me is what I'm trying to say, is that this overlay is like, just in how I see when I'm working with somebody and helping them come in their body. And what you really end up working with is being brave enough to go where the pain is. Because if your knee hurts, and we've been all taught, oh, that's pain, it's bad, and so I need to run away from it. And really, it's exactly the opposite. The pain is trying to tell your awareness, hey, I need help down here. And if all your other consciousnesses that know how to run your body, know how to fix your knee, it just needs your attention. When you add your attention to it, which is adding the multidimensional awareness to it, and just be with it. Just be there with your knee. It's going to start healing faster. And at the same time, you've brought your spirit into your body. Literally, meaning you're bringing it down into your body. And it's probably going to hurt more than it's hurt in a while. Because when you add your spirit into all your rest of your systems of your body, then you can feel more, you get more lucid. So now you're going to really feel the pain. And so the next thing I coach people through, I'm like, it's already there, it can't hurt you. It's just pain. And then there's usually an emotional story that goes along with it that you don't like. So then people, if you run out of your body, you'll feel less. You stay in there and go and be willing to see, well, what's that story? Oh, okay. It's going to run out of gas. If not any other way, it's just going to run out of gas. And then there's usually some like choice you've been avoiding doing. I worked with athletes for a while, and they would come in and they'd be like, literally, the knee. I'm like, whose knee is it? And they're like, whoa, that's a stupid question. It's my knee. I'm like, yeah, exactly. So why are you telling me the knee? Look, do you see the reflection of how disconnected that is?
Yeah.
Well, when I got to go race next week, I'm like, your knee's blown apart, dude. Like, yeah, maybe. I've seen people heal in 20 minutes, but you got, we got a lot to do fast then if that's going to happen.
Yeah. Which
means the knee is your knee, and get in there and you just be with it. Like you hold a little child, you just hang out with it. And it heals faster. So when I've saw, in the beginning, there's beginnings, if you look through my life but as I became a little more aware then, I saw the 11/11 thing since like the mid 90s. And I learned really early on, I go, okay, so that's bringing spirit into matter.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have become aware of us. One thing you realize, I'll just tell you flat out, one of the things you're realizing is that you came here to bring spirit into matter.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. And so now we're going another level. We're like amping up the story. We're bringing more consciousness here. And it's going to transform this place. So where that was a long story about we're this far away from aligning that celestial galactic blueprint with here and now.
Mm-hmm.
We're literally, like what I saw thousands of feet over the top of all the mountain ranges 15 years ago is inches away from us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the same way when you come in your body and you go into the area of the body that's really has some major disruption, and the first thing is like, well, I can't even get in there. Now that I'm playing along with you, Todd, it just looks kind of dark. And I'm like, all right, well, just hang out with the darkness. Well, I don't really like it. It doesn't feel, I'm like, good. Okay, good. Now we're getting, that's there. It doesn't feel good. Okay. So just be with it. Don't judge it. Hang out with it. We're doing the same process as all of us. And then, what happens? You got to go to the bathroom 2 hours later, a whole bunch of ugly stuff comes out. So we're getting in here and all the ugly shit's coming out. I wouldn't get overly caught up in it. That's my advice. Be aware of it. If they're like burning in the middle of your town, you might want to be aware of it and whatever. I don't know. Maybe you can help some way, but you also want to, do whatever you got to do. If it's yours, I had to learn, if I walk through the middle of woods, it's all just nature. And I'm like, oh, hey, Although I have walked through the middle of a section of woods where it was just coyote central and there wasn't one living mammal other than all that. And I was like, okay, this is an interesting place to be. But I've had to learn, what's mine. So if I walk through the middle of a city and I walk past an alleyway, I'll probably tap into some crazy, atrocious thing happen down in that alleyway. Then mostly I'm like, no, that's not really mine. Once in a while it is mine. And then I'm like, everyone around me is like, oh boy, here we go. So I that's up to you. That's up to your own truth about, be aware of it. Be mindful of it. And then the rubber meets the road. What story are we hearing? We're hearing in the collective consciousness thing, everybody's looking at, do I fall under the pressure of, taking a certain thing, or, do I lose my job? My advice is, well, do what's true for you. Don't fall for the fear right now. Cause as little controversy as possible. Be as calm as you can and call their bluff. Get a piece of paper at least when they send you out the door. I mean, don't just say, oh, okay, well, I guess so. Be like, no, No. And prove it. Show me. What's in this thing? Is it approved? But it's, and people are like, well, I'm going to lose my job. I'm like, well, is your job any good? Is your company serving humanity in any real way? It's going down. In some ways, the disconnect I'm hearing is, the ones that are aware are here to catalyze the, there's a different way to look at this. So when you are working with somebody, facilitating them, at a certain point, there's some fear and some pain and some anger and maybe some pus and some shit and some, and you have to face that. And you got to let it come out. You got to stay with it. And it goes where it goes. And if you survive the healing crisis, you heal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening in the big picture as a whole. So, the best thing that could happen to you is probably to get kicked out of your company, but maybe you want to, hold their feet to the fire while you're doing it.
Yeah. Definitely.
At a certain point, you got to be like, well, what's my choice? And what's the choice that serves in the inside of me? Because otherwise, because if I don't, then I can't feed it. That's all fear-based. It will never get you a good result. If you're, well, this one's safer. Well, that's the gray zone, because, don't step off the curb in front of the bus unless you really think you can accelerate all your atoms fast enough that it'll just go through you or something. So that fear is trying to tell you something. The other fear is just fear you're reacting to.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to decide. You can say, okay, well, I'm afraid of that, so I'm going to do this. But if you're willing to step back and watch it, at the same time, you know what result you're going to get. The same old miserable result. Man, I'm on a roll now.
You sure are, Todd. Keep it going.
Yeah, so that's questions, ideas, comments.
Yeah. Somebody described the fall of Eden once as a fall from 5D consciousness down to 3D consciousness, where we were available as prey to beings from the fourth dimension. So I was wondering if you're seeing these crystal cities. Someone else described what we're doing now is we're going the opposite of the fall through dimensions. We're ascending upwards through the dimensions. You think you're seeing like a thinning of the veil there?
I think I'm seeing the potential, but I think it's active too. I mean, I think that the whole galaxy, certainly, and the whole whatever, all of creation's pushing and setting this up, but we're needed. We're not just like bystanders watching. We're part of we're the ones that came here to bring this here.
Yeah, we are it.
We're it. We're not, not whoever. We're the ones.
Right.
So I think that story, I was just reading through the comments about, someone said consciousness and cerebral spinal fluid. And I think I have a degree in physics. I studied cranial sacral therapy, practice it. I'm a river guide for 33 years, so I have a lot of experience with water. We used to sit there after a river trip once in a while going, oh, look, now I have full control over this water. But, you know, a little while ago, we were in the middle of a lot of water. We didn't have much control. We're how many ever, 75% or 90 or something percent water. I think it's more like channeling. I'd say yes and no. Our consciousness and our cerebral spinal fluid. Your cerebral spinal fluid's conscious, so is your vertebrae, and so is your spinal column, and so is every cell. And, you know, if you go watch Bruce Lipton's stories about all the cells are making most of their own decisions. But if we're also feeding it a strong flow of our own energy fields, you know, then it's like, I call it the internet, not the internet, the internet.
The internet, Todd, that's awesome.
The internet. Now, so that cell's online too. It's making its own choices, but it has all of the universe of information. Oh yeah, I'm Todd's back. Okay. So if you're not channeling your higher self through yourself, so you know, it's a yes and a no story. Your consciousness could be in your cerebral spinal fluid, but it's also everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can move it. Go, okay. Whoever's listening to that or whoever wrote that, go and put your awareness in your big toe. Your right big toe. Now put it in your left little finger. Now put it in your back of your right earlobe. You can move your attention around, and I think your attention is your higher self. And the more you're willing to channel yourself through yourself, the more it's there, but it's there or it's gone. It's not, you know, come on, the story that the chemicals made it, that's just like, and the chemicals are what? Let's do that one. The chemicals are atoms. The atoms are, right? The model I grew up with in college is wrong. The model of neutrons might not even be real. Protons with a bunch of electrons like they're things. And the best physics model, we used to mess with the chemistry majors because we're like, so the physicists describe that's all ego stuff, but it's funny. What an atom, who came first? And really physical science is the study of physical science or whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. The best science we have now is that it's all energy potential. And the best models I've seen are the sacred geometry, so that the smallest atoms on the periodic table are, you know, I'd have to look this up again, or like a small sacred geometry, then it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. And the electrons are on the point, but it's all potentials. So it's energy field. Even the guy saying it's all in your brain chemistry, I'm like, that's all energy field.
Yeah.
I was talking about it last night. It's funny. I got people in my family who are totally mainstream, and somehow Tesla came up. Like, if you want to see it seeping through, my brother-in-law started talking about Tesla. And I couldn't help myself. I'm like, because they know me. And I don't say much because it just disrupts everything. We're trying to have my niece's graduation, not me tell them about, you know, whatever. Or bring up some conspiracy that freaks them out or whatever it is.
Yeah, some truth.
But they open the door and I'm like, you want a lie that's gone around since you were in school? They told us in school that Thomas Edison turned these lights on. I go, that's a lie. Nikola Tesla turn the lights on. Your lights would not be on without alternating current, without a generator that could generate it and a motor that could run on it. You know, Edison would have burned down every house in the city trying to run direct current through it.
Yeah.
Point being that, you know, and so now what, our chemistry, no, it's energy, frequency, vibration. That's what it's made out of. And consciousness is some other level beyond that, inside of it, and more multidimensionally, more than, for the lack of any better English, because English is a problem all by itself.
Yeah.
Then the chemicals or the energy fields of the atoms. It's not even dependent on space and time. There's a YouTube video. Some guy, he went in front of a bunch of panelists, and they're saying, so you believe that, so where does God exist? And he's like, no, wrong question. The God I believe transcends space and time. He's not, I'm just using God because I'll use whatever word people are comfortable with. Universe, God, spirit, Brahma, Chi, Ki. I get in trouble all the time. Like, it's all pretty much the same to me.
Yeah, I get it. Me too.
It's different culture, different ways of imagining it. It's not in the chemicals are in it. That's my story of this one. Is, you want to do the chicken or the egg story? The form follows function. The awareness created the stuff. The stuff didn't create the awareness.
Right.
The reason we can't locate our awareness is because it's not a function of stuff. But it is a function of how we operate. And so it's your willingness to be inside of here will add one whole more layer of information and organization and synchronization and coherence that doesn't exist when your body drops dead on the floor. That still exists, but they're not together anymore.
All right.
So I don't think they'll find it in the cerebral spinal fluid either, to tell you the truth. You know, your memory might be in your cells in ways. I think you probably have a spirit sort of a memory, and then you have the healing of going into your knee and being within your knee is that the trauma, think about how much information a cell can store compared to like a DVD. All right, I'm dating myself, but whatever. A memory stick or something like that. It's multidimensional. Your cell can store multidimensional, and the trauma stuck in there. And if you get it to move, because really the physics is we're like, all of it's blinking out and in and out of existence. Like, what's the number they have on it right now? Like
144,000.
No, times per second. But
yeah, 144,000, I think, or yeah, something like that. Cliff High talks about it. It's a lot.
That literally, right? It's all an illusion, and it's blinking on and off, but it's blinking on and off so fast.
Yeah.
And so, but you have something that's recorded this memory, and it keeps replacing the same "my knee's broken" memory. If you're willing to go in there and really be with it and get it to move, now that pattern's gone. That's really how you let it go. You don't let it go by banishing it and pushing it away. You let it go by letting it run through your system. And you're going to, I used to think you had to experience the whole thing. I don't know if that's, we don't even have the time for all of that, but you get, and you save the knowledge and the learning and the wisdom and throw out the rest. And by then the physical part will be whole, right? The holy, becoming holy, you become whole. So, but we need the overlay, right? I don't see how. Now I just have to talk from my own experience. I've looked at this 6 ways till Sunday. I don't see how the part of me, you can identify with your physical body and things like that, but my awareness part of me doesn't come from this. It comes from my part of source. That's the awareness.
Yeah, it makes sense that it's non-specific, that your consciousness wouldn't be located in one spot. I mean, people talk about right brain, left brain. I think it's just a different way of saying your ego mind and your spiritual mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we have some different sort of circuitry in how we can filter when we're receiving information, and one part of our brain seems to do it differently than the other part. But then I think we're supposed to bridge the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The programming is that you look in between your ears to find your answer.
Mm-hmm.
My truth is, no, the answer's in my heart. If you want science for it, the conservative estimates of our heart field are 10 times. I've heard up to 100 or even more, but whatever the number, 10 times is plenty. Your heart field's 10 times bigger than your energy field in your brain.
Yeah.
So if you do that in like computer science model, what's it saying? It's saying that your heart is sending 10 times the amount of information to your brain as that your brain is sending to your heart. So who has more information? So some of it's just training alone. Like, I got to hang out with Native Americans in Taos, New Mexico for a while. And growing up from, Northern New York, Western type programming, it took me 7 years to start actually grasping, and I'm asking the medicine man, how come you won't answer my question? Now, when I look back and I realize how much the guy actually really liked me and put up with me, because he finally looked me in the eye and he goes, look at me. And he's like, because we don't know what your answer is, Todd. Because the only lesson you got from those guys was, what does your heart say?
Mm-hmm.
And their point was, you have unique information that nobody else has. And the answer to your question, Todd, is, what is your answer? But it's not here. And so in like helping people run themselves better, one of the first things I end up telling a lot of people, I'm like, your brain can't do this. We can talk about it until we're blue in the face. And after a while, I'm like, hey, let's do something. Like, let's do this. For me, that's a good place to stop. Because it's really simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how long have we been going?
Oh, it's been a little over an hour, Todd.
How we're
I think you did really good. I mean,
I feel like I burned it up already.
you
And
did.
that I gave you when we were talking privately. Remember, I talked about the model, how when I'm one-on-one with somebody, you know, everything will warm up and it feels like nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden I'm following patterns and it's going and going and going. And in the beginning, then I'd start getting intellectual about it. I'm like, oh, now we got to work on that. And there's this and that needs to be fit. And it builds up and it goes and it goes. And then at a point, it's like, okay, that's enough for them for now.
Yeah.
One thing I learned that I wasn't asking in the beginning was, and someone will come in and say, my knee hurts. Probably, if it's this their first time doing energy work, you're probably going to work on their heart center the whole time because their whole system's like, no, this is more important. And probably the knee over a period of time will start healing anyway. Because their whole system is, no, you need, this is, whatever. The knee, that's just a byproduct of what's not working. So healing isn't even the healing's a side effect of becoming more conscious and aware.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start making it the goal, it all falls apart. Because it's just a function of being really in tune and being really aware and being really synchronized and being coherent.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah, I think that's a good place to stop there, Todd.
So yeah, so we burned it up. But I'd like to do a quick a grounding
Okay.
meditation to
Okay.
end. And it's really this simple, guys. We did it, but let's do it again. So for me, I always ask permission because I'm also giving permission. It makes it really clear. So I'm like, I ask to be connected with the great central sun. This is in my own words. I'm going to do it in my own words for me. That's how I do it for me, which to me goes through the galactic central sun center and it goes to the source of all that is. And it's from the beyond nothing to, it's the first awareness of all. So it has to be connected to that. And then my higher self comes out of that. And I ask my higher self to come down and come and be inside of this body, however much of it is appropriate for right now for me. Because I think there's so much of our higher self that, I want all of my higher, I don't think so. I think all of your higher self would probably burn you into a French fry. It's too much energy.
Yeah.
So whatever, I'm connecting my higher self, comes through my head, crown chakra. This is all important. Third eye, pituitary. So that's brain. Yeah, it's coming in. You're receiving it through your expression centers, into your heart, through your this and that. This is where you create your solar plexus reality. 3D. Then your creative, all your sexual organs, and you're being able to create new life organs. That's your three-dimensional creative power, and down into your root and into the earth. Because we're synchronizing, we're a union of our source, higher self information, and the earth awareness. We're not one or the other. We're joined, but and then what I'm talking about, and then there's even more coming. So we could add to that, and then the Christ consciousness, asking Christ consciousness to come and show me how to do this. I'm going to plug all that, and I'm going to give it, and I ask permission to connect with Mother Earth, with Gaia. I'm just going to say yes. It's what you're doing, and I'm I'm giving all of that, all of me, into the center of the planet, but also the higher consciousness of the planet, which is in the same place because the planet's pretty well aligned. And then that goes back, right? The Earth's higher consciousness goes back to source. And so now that's all going to come back up through us and go back to source. So now we're in our body and we're really connected. And then you sit on the rock and look out at the mountain or whatever. And one really cool exercise is to be like, oh yeah, this is all me. I'm all this though. And that's, there's the earthing story of grounding, and they're both, when I'm talking about grounding, I'm talking about getting your consciousness lined up into your body and into the planet. And now you can know anything relative to you. You can know anything you want. From here, you can, and it might take a day or whatever. I can get the answer to anything, not just anything, but it's just, I don't need to know anything that's not relative to me, That's the other thing I learned from the natives. They're like, in the Western world, they talk about, my whole family, the best way to do, you're like, and the answer, the ultimate, no, this is what everyone's talking about your truth. If you keep doing that exercise, and you may not have any experience at first, but I've never seen anyone not. If you keep, there's something that's been taken from us, it's our imagination.
Yeah.
Program that your imagination isn't real. But this runs on your ability to image or to feel or sense or whatever. You're moving your awareness from source and planting it all the way into the earth and back to source. And now you're centered and grounded. And you're going to feel more. Probably the next thing to do is whatever, something you become whatever, something that is a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit of whatever fear or that's important just to recognize it.
Yeah. Okay, I think we did really, really well there, Todd. So what do you think we should call this though while we're deciding?
That's it.
Crystal Cities? I mean, I like that.
Boy. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
It's catchy or whatever.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, to be continued, I hope. So.
Yeah, and one of the things that surprised me was that people didn't even realize Wizard of Oz had money right in its title. That OZ stands for gold, right?
Yeah.
People are like, whoa, the top of their heads are coming off, Okay. Well, this has been Todd talking about Crystal Cities, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.